this lesson, I'm gonna show you 5 ways to break out of scaly sounding guitar solos, make the most of your caged shapes, and start to make the music that you hear in your head. If you're like many of us, you've been told that you need to perfect your scale shapes in order to learn how to solo. That's not really the entire picture, and just getting good with scales isn't going to make you sound great as a guitar soloist. The CAGED system is an excellent way to learn the notes and the correct positions across the guitar neck. However, just mastering the CAGED shapes isn't going to make you solo great or even good. From teaching thousands of guitar lessons since 2007, a common complaint from my students is my solos sound like I'm running scales. In today's lesson, we will be using the CAGED shapes in G major over a G major backing track. It's kind of in a Van Morrison style. You can download the Van-ish backing track and the accompanying diagrams from the link below. So quickly on the chord progression in this backing track, I'm using G major, B minor, C, back to G, then G major, B minor, C, up to D. So that's 1, 3, 4, 1, and then 1, 3, 4, 5. Step number 1. Only use the CAGED system pentatonic shapes. So a great place to start with CAGED is to only use the corresponding pentatonic shapes rather than the 7-note scales. Why, you might ask? Well, besides the pentatonic being the safest way to nail pleasant notes over the chords, also less is more. I find that many of my guitar students have the tendency to want to run scale patterns up and down. And more notes means more information and less focus on the things that matter when soloing. So let me show you. So I'm going to use the C shape for my soloing right now. That will be based at the 7th fret will be my lowest note, 10th fret's highest note. So notice that I can get a lot out of that little scale shape by just playing the pentatonics. Now notice I'm not running the scale up and down. That's not musical, but I am trying to kind of play lines and ideas that are connected to the groove and in the pocket. So step 2. Once you feel comfortable making some music with the pentatonic version of the CAGED system, I would recommend adding the other 2 notes of this 7-note scale system to fill out the pentatonic scales and turn them into these 7-note major scales. But rather than just adding them in and playing the scales straight up and down, use these additional notes as flavor to add to your lines. I would essentially still recommend using lines based around the pentatonics and just use the extra notes to decorate. These 2 other notes can be slightly dissonant if you really land on them in the wrong places. However, they always sound great if you pass through them, use them as passing tones, and don't target them as a landing note. Notice I passed through the C there. So when I'm landing my phrases, I'm landing on the notes that are in the pentatonic scale. So I really use those extra 2 notes as just decoration. Step number 3, and you might have already noticed this. For some reason, guitarists have the tendency to miss the boat on rhythm. The moment you start talking about rhythm with them, they tend to assume that rhythm is chords. And no, rhythm is the time in which your notes are happening. And in 2024, it's incredibly important to just be as in time when you're soloing as you are when you're playing chords. One way that I like to practice working on my rhythm with scales is to practice improvising, but I give myself rhythmic rules to follow, such as I'm going to improvise, but I'm only allowed to play quarter notes. How much music can I make with just that? Or I'm going to improvise, but I can only use eighth notes, or triplets, or sixteenths. This can be really challenging, but the coolest part is that you're targeting essential rhythmic skills. And also, you're practicing improv and soloing at the same time. You're actually strengthening your improv muscles rather than just practicing verbatim exercises that aren't going to translate to improving your solos. So here I'm going to demonstrate in the A shape. So that's in the key of G, A shape at the 10th fret there. So I'm gonna force myself to improvise, but I'm only allowed to use quarter notes. It's kind of hard, you gotta think ahead. Right away, I would use grace notes, slides, if I tried eighth notes, I'm getting a little harder. That's counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 1. If I like something, I might repeat it. Ooh, what about triplets? Don't worry if you don't sound this smooth at first. I have worked on this a lot because it's a great exercise. Even sixteenths. It gets a little challenging, but it's really fun. All right, make sure to stick around for tip number 5 because I don't see people teaching soloing skills and phrasing tricks like this one. So if you're enjoying the lesson so far, make sure to head over to soloonguitar.com to grab my free 51-page PDF for all your soloing and improv needs. It includes all my diagonal pentatonic, CAGED system hacks, essential music theory, and even some diagonal arpeggios. Go ahead and click the link below. Step number 4 is practice improvising with 5 key ingredients for decorating scales. Slides, hammer-ons, pull-offs, bends, and vibrato are the core ingredients to instantly sound more musical. In my soloing practice, I will turn on a backing track and I will try to target each of these techniques to see if I can make them sound good. Let's check them out. I'm gonna start with slides. I'm gonna be down in the E shape here at the 3rd fret. Get some of those 3-note slides in. Slides up, slides down. Try different things. How about let's try some hammer-ons up in that next shape. That's gonna be the D shape there. Hammers only. I like series of hammer-ons, trying to kind of put strings together. Fast hammer-ons, slow ones. How about some pull-offs? Already I'm doing a little bit of vibrato. Every song is different with the way that you want to wiggle. Rather than having kind of like one standard vibrato that you might use different speeds at different moments. And finally, some bends. And bends are really based on bending to the next note of the scale. I always tell my students, 0 bends to nowhere. Really important. So it's really important to note that practice isn't always supposed to sound good. Make sure to be patient with yourself and do these types of exercises in small chunks, like 2 to 5 minutes. The fact that you're practicing in this targeted approach is going to make you better a lot faster, but patience is still key. So step number 5, be focused in on your phrasing. We're gonna use some hand on, hand off, some repetition, and some call and response. This is something that I haven't seen many people teach, and I believe it's one of the key ingredients to instantly sound better with solos. So what am I doing here? The first step here is to practice taking your hand off of the guitar between phrases. You absolutely need to make some space inside of your solos. Otherwise, your guitar playing sounds just like run-on sentences, and the listener never has any time to process what you're playing. All right, so the second thing I recommend for your phrasing is to be able to commit to a phrase and see it through. You'd be surprised at how many people have trouble repeating an idea and basing their next ideas off of it. So I recommend playing a lick in whatever CAGED shape. There I was using the G shape, and then try to repeat it exactly before you move on. And I would try and repeat it about 3 to 5 times. So let's go ahead and give that a try. I'm gonna be playing in the G shape here, and let's see if I can play a lick and then kind of repeat it. All right, again. I'm trying to play it rhythmically the same as well. That was 3, let's do it one more. So sometimes on the last one, I like to add just like a little touch of something extra. It's kind of putting like a period on the end. So again, play a lick 3 to 5 times, try and copy yourself, see if you can get that going on. And lastly, watch this. This is called call and response, and it's legitimately one of the most important techniques across music and especially in guitar soloing. What I'm doing is specifically trying to tie 2 ideas together. I often will play ascending on the call or the question, and then I will respond to it by playing descending on the response. I often find that my response is a touch shorter as well. Make your guitar playing conversational, and you will connect with the average listener so much better. Now that you've expanded your CAGED potential and are making more music with these shapes, check out this video next in order to learn my simple system to bridge the gap between box shapes and connecting across the entire guitar neck.